There may be some screws along the back. I've already removed that one. But it has a lever right here, and basically you just pull up the lever and pull the door. Now sometimes in the old machines, they get stuck, and that's all you really have to do, take it off. If it's stuck, you just have to work with it. The next thing we need to do, we've turned it around, we need to take the front panel off and lift up the enclosure for the hard drive and CD-ROM, and if it had a floppy drive, it would be here. It has 3 tabs right here. These 3 tabs just come up easy as you please. Okay, and they come out and they kind of sit on the bottom. You got to kind of lift up. They have little tabs on the bottom there. So very easy to do. And then it has a little lever here to pull this whole unit up. And right here is the power supply. Now I'm going to turn it around because we're now going to work with the back of the unit. When working on this, I did find in the back here the one screw that attached to the casing. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. I use my star bit screwdriver and we go ahead and remove that. And we just set it off to the side. There's not very many screws. Alright, so now we're down to the motherboard. The reason we have to pull the motherboard out is because we cannot get to the brackets that hold this back plate in place. But this is very easy. They've actually made this fairly easy. There's a lever here, and basically all you do is you pull it up and you pull the unit back like that. They pull up and pull back, and then the motherboard can come loose. And that's as easy as that can get. We're going to disconnect this is the audio cable for the front and the USB for the front. And then there's also the speaker cable for the front. We'll remove that. And we do have this pin connector for the front that turns on the power and the lights in the front, basically the power switch. And then we have a fan connector for the front. So we're gonna disconnect all that, and then we can move the motherboard off to the side. So for this video purposes, I did remove the IDE cables. Now, if you see down in here, this is the main part of contention. You really can't get to these brackets unless you take the motherboard out. So before we remove this bracket, there's a couple screws. This one right here connects to the chassis, and then this one right here connects to the chassis also. So we're going to go ahead and remove those 2 screws. Okay, so now that we've got those off, it should be pretty easy to remove this, but as you can see, it's kind of stuck. That's why I've made it almost impossible to do this without removing the motherboard. So you can see basically where the brackets come in place. We're just going to kind of gently put our screwdriver underneath there, kind of pry it, and then it should just come right out, a little bit of force. This is what holds the power supply from coming out the back. We're going to put that off to the side. Here's our power supply. I may make it look easy, but it's in a bracket similar to these. It's on the bottom of the motherboard. It has these brackets like this that holds that power supply unit into place. So if this computer is fairly old and has never been maintained before, it might get stuck. You might need to use your screwdriver to kind of pry it. Here's basically, you just push it forward and pull it up. And you can see on the bottom of the power supply that it was basically hooked in from the bottom and it had to go in one way. So now you would have your new power supply, and you can get one of those on any suppliers. You can check around your local listings. We should be able to find one pretty easily. I found the hardest part of this is basically putting it back into place. And again, you notice the bracket holders that go into the motherboard. So you can't get it too far out of bounds. And one thing you want to do is make sure that these cables come under here beneath this USB sound connector that goes to the motherboard. Otherwise, whenever you try to shut the top, this part won't fold all the way down and the lid won't fold properly, and you'll have to take it apart. So basically you get it in there right about here. There's a little line here where this back part is. If you sit it right in there, it's nice and flat. What I did the first couple times was I tried to sit it all the way up there and it just wouldn't go in. So I just sit it right there and it's nice and flat and push it in place. It almost goes flush with that backside. So that's basically it. And now I'm going to put it back together in fast speed. Alright, so this is very important, and one of the most aggravating things about this small form factor is trying to get this down. Just make sure that these cables are nice and underneath this fan area and this USB area. They really shouldn't harm anything if you don't use zip ties, but you can see I'm not getting it flush. There we go. Alright, so we're going to turn it around and we're going to put the front bracket back on. And again, you may need to lift it up because it does need to go into the front. Kind of flip up like that, snap it in place. Put the lid back right about like that. Only thing on here, it does have a guide here on the back, so that when you put it in, if you don't have it on the guide, it'll stick up. This has been a tutorial on how to remove and replace a power supply unit for an HP DC5000 SFF computer.